Brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and neutrals. Today, I'm going to be like a newscaster. I'm going to do some reading. I will not do a lot of digressing, injecting my opinion. Along the way, naturally, I will. But this is going to be primarily straight from the news annals. The first is going to deal with Donald Trump. He cannot let go of the presidency. He cannot let go of the fact that he lost, and he's very upset about how the cover's going to be jerked. This article, sometimes I can see a trend and predict where I think it's going to wind up. It would be like if I had a slope of this kind and I set a marble at the top and I let it go, anybody would know that because of the law of gravity, that marble is going to roll, and when it hits the table, it's going to continue rolling until it loses its momentum. Well, I can see trends in politics and society and conclude where I think they might wind up within a certain time frame. So I keep articles for use when that event occurs. This article is from September 5th, 2017, 5 years ago, but I knew that it was going to produce an impact. The title or headline, Trump misled US on his Russian interests. And I'll let the article speak for itself. There comes a point in the unspooling of every complex political, financial, legal scandal when the story becomes so complicated that it's easy to lose the thread of what matters. The facts dribble out in ever more confusing increments. The lengthy cast of characters resembles a Russian novel. Competing news demands our attention. That is where we are now in 2017 when it comes to the investigation of President Trump and Russia. Harvey, which was, and you'll notice parallels, one of those heavy storms that comes in off the sea, a hurricane. This one's name was Harvey. There is hurricane season going on now. Floods, all of the destructiveness. Anyway, the Harvey referred to is the name of a hurricane. Harvey deluged the Gulf Coast, drowning out the news about Trump's involvement with Russia. Still, that news is or should be huge. Huge. The latest revelations feel, at least for now, like more of a political bombshell than a legal problem, but the two are closely related. Consider how many public officials have landed themselves in legal jeopardy trying to save their political hides. To recap what we know now, we know that we did not know a week ago certain things. While Trump ran for president, he was simultaneously and secretly pursuing financial opportunities with a foreign adversary, not just any adversary, but Russia, a country described by his party's previous presidential nominee as the United States, quote, #1 geopolitical foe. And not just pursuing financial opportunities in Russia, but actively seeking the help of at least one senior Russian official to gain government approval for the project. Once again, this is not okay. When you run for president, you should not put yourself in a position of using that candidacy as a door-opening business opportunity. You cannot and should not, even if the prospect of winning seems remote, put yourself in a position of being financially beholden to a hostile foreign power. Trump Tower Moscow it was not another instance of Trump as unabashed cross-promoter-in-chief, like using the campaign press corps to help tout the reopening of his Scottish golf course. It represented something much more disturbing, even unpatriotic. It was possible, when the Washington Post first broke the news of the failed deal, to discount the proposal as braggadocio for Felix Sater, the Russian-born real estate developer pushing the deal. Quote, "Our boy can become president of the USA and we can engineer it," Sater emailed Trump Organization Executive Vice President Michael Cohen, and this was detailed by the New York Times. But as it turned out, this was more than Sater freelancing in Trump's name. The Washington Post next reported that Cohen emailed Putin's spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, in January 2016 in a bid to save the languishing deal. It was getting shaky. So Trump's spokesman contacted this top dog in Russia to try to save the deal. I got to find where I was. Cohen discussed the project with Trump on 3 occasions, and that his effort was dropped when Russian government permission was unforthcoming. The Trump Organization not only pursued this opportunity in secret, it indeed, Trump himself, actively misled the public. Imagine how much more sharply people would have responded to Trump's already repulsive praise of Russian President Vladimir Putin during that time. Quote, "He's running his country, and at least he's a leader, unlike what we have in this country." If they knew that Trump had just signed a letter of intent with a Russian firm to develop a Trump-branded tower in Moscow, they would have responded much more sharply and negatively to his comment about how great Putin was. And as the question of Trump's Russian connections became increasingly controversial, Trump somehow omitted the just abandoned deal. Quote from Trump, "For the record, I have zero," and he'd put all these in quotes when he was tweeting, "I have zero investments in Russia." He tweeted that in July of 2016. This past January in 2017, as Trump prepared to take office, he reiterated, and all of these are in capital letters, "I have nothing to do with Russia, no deals, no loans, no nothing, exclamation point," end of quote. Shades of Bill Clinton. It depends on what the meaning of have is. As recently as his interview this summer of 2017 with the New York Times, Trump disingenuously, that means dishonestly, misleadingly, downplayed his financial interests in Russia. Quote, "I mean, it's possible there's a condo or something, so, I sell a lot of condo units and somebody from Russia buys a condo. Who knows? They said I own buildings in Russia. I don't. They said I made money from Russia. I don't. It's not my thing." Quote, I don't do that. Over the years, I've looked at maybe doing a deal in Russia, but I never did one." End of his quote to the paper, including the one he was pursuing while running for president, but failed to mention. We have become inured to Trumpian self-dealing, from doubling membership fees at Mar-a-Lago to profiting off his government-owned DC hotel. This one goes beyond pure greed. It edges into serious questions about whether Trump positions on Putin and Russia have been and remain tainted by considerations not of what is best for the nation, meaning America, but what benefits Trump's bottom line. And that was written in 2017. And even today, He's sniffing behind Putin. Now I'm going to deal with something that happened right here in Nebraska. I spent many years in the legislature trying to run herd on the judiciary and misbehaving judges. I went after individual judges who did wrong, but I never tried to undermine the judicial branch as an institution. You need in a democracy or anywhere else, if possible, to have a court system which is beholden to nobody and nothing other than that oath they took to uphold the law and dispense justice without fear or favor. Nobody, because of his or her standing or lack of standing, is going to have a leg up on anybody else. The rich will not have an easier or more likely to win path than the poorest individual. We know these are things that are not going to happen in any system involving human beings. Even though judges don't run for office in the sense of one person opposed to another and seeking the office, they are concerned about being retained in office. So when it comes time for a judge to face the music, the only thing on the ballot is the judge's name and shall this judge be retained, yes or no. So these individuals, being human, being interested in retaining the position they've got, are careful about whose toes they might step on. Do you know that these judges are so light-footed when it comes to stepping on toes that when it comes to a rich person, they can step on the toe of a rich person without disturbing the polish of the shoes? And as I've given as an example, they know how to be such pussyfooters when it comes to protecting the interests of big business, corporations, and those who do indeed have and wield the power in the society. They are such pussyfooters, they could tap dance on piano keys stretching from the East Coast to the West Coast without striking a note. That's pussyfooting. And that's what judges do. Behind those robes and under those robes often is a lot of wickedness, a lot of duplicity, a lot of oath violating. Society hopes for the best. But if you're not observant, if you don't pay attention, if there's not somebody being a watchdog, the judges are going to do just like other people do. Self-centeredness, self-interest, getting as much as possible, and they will become box-ankle, slew-footed, and pigeon-toed when it comes to walking the line required to be walked in order to comply with that oath. So I've filed numerous complaints against judges with the agency established by the Constitution to review and judge the judges. It's called the Judicial Qualification Commission, JQC for short. And any citizen, based on language in the Constitution, can file a complaint with that commission about any judge when that person believes that that judge has engaged in misconduct. Here's where the wagon loses its wheels. If a judge has robbed a bank in broad daylight and it comes to the attention, now we know about the criminal prosecution, so I'm not talking about the fact that it's a crime, the cops would catch him or her and they'd go to jail. I'm talking about the severity, the magnitude of a wrong. If it becomes clear that somebody is going to talk to the JQC about it, here's where they give judges a big hole to escape through. No action of a punitive nature can be taken against a judge until they have a confidential or secret meeting. It's called a hearing, a secret session with that judge, pointing out these charges that are pending. And all that's done in confidence. And if the judge, now knowing this, knowing that there is enough to kick him out of office and do damage to his or her pension, the judge can resign. And if the judge resigns before the commission files formal charges, the judge gets his or her full pension. As I say, if they had done like Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker, I know the first names of important people, they were known as Bonnie and Clyde, robbed a bank in broad daylight, and it's known. And the commission informs the judge that we've got this information and we're going to take action. And the judge resigns before formal charges are filed. The judge gets his or her entire pension. So I've tried to find a way to deal with that. And I'm working on it with this judge, his case that I'm going to read to you about. I've done all my commentating. I'm going to read. This article appeared in the Omaha World Herald, September 21st. What month is this? I believe it's September. Oh, this one was a little earlier. That was September 21st of that other article, September 11th. That's still not long ago. And it was in the Sunday paper. The reporter did an excellent job. It started on page 1. You turn the page, and the entire page was devoted to laying out the facts. But remember this, since the judge retired or resigned, there is no punishment. And if I have time, I'll tell you what steps I intend to take to try to circumvent that. The headline, judge who resigned had ties to meth user. His sudden departure from Dodge County Post followed relationship with a self-professed addict. This is by Todd Cooper, a World Herald staff writer. And as I say, he did an excellent job. And we talked about this before he wrote his article. And he knew the kind of work that I had done. And he can anticipate that I'm going to pursue it further because I told him before the article appeared even. Fremont, Nebraska. For a gregarious guy, Judge Ken Van Pola moseyed quietly out of the Dodge County Courthouse on September 2nd, his last day. No retirement party, no cake, no staffers gathered around wishing him well, no proclamations from governors past or present. The biggest adieu for that, goodbye. The biggest adieu for the longtime judge, a small gathering at a local steakhouse after hours. There was a reason for that. Van Pola's departure was much more resignation under duress than retirement into the sunset. It was spurred by the judge's numerous ethical violations connected to his relationship with a 32-year-old self-professed meth addict. According to several sources, accounts, and multiple documents obtained by the World Herald, this reporter and the World Herald, as a member of the media, did their job. Now it's up to the judicial branch to do its job. And I'm going to try to build a trap from which they cannot escape. But remember this, whatever the judges say, a majority of them on the Supreme Court, and there are 7 of them, that goes. That becomes the law. No matter how much it flies in the face of what is required by the Constitution or the statutes. If the judges say no is yes and yes is no, heel is toe and toe is heel, that's what the law is. Unless the legislature comes along and passes a law erasing that. The judge had such a close relationship with this woman, a litigant in his courtroom numerous times, that he bought her cars, had her spend nights at his Platte River cabin, begged a fellow judge to not issue a warrant for her arrest, and bailed her out of jail. To boot, the woman had his credit cards on her when police recently stopped her and searched her on suspicion that she was high on meth. Vampola declined to comment when the World Herald posed several questions about allegations of current and past misconduct. Turns out the judge got out of Dodge just in time. His sudden resignation means he'll keep his state pension. He's not the only judge who has done so. In the past 4 years, 4 embattled judges, Supreme Court Judge Max Kelch, I filed a complaint against him, but the Council for Discipline that takes action or recommends action against a license holder to practice law had said that since his misconduct occurred while he was a judge, that as a counsel for discipline, he cannot take action to take the judge's license. Douglas County Juvenile Court Judge Elizabeth Circovich, she resigned under a complaint that I had filed where she had thrown lawyers out of a courtroom, threatened to have them arrested, and other things, and the way she handled juveniles. When I've come after them, they know it's like the FBI. I filed a complaint. She became aware of it. She resigned. So she'll keep her whole pension. Douglas County Judge Lawrence Barrett and now Vampola all have retired before formal ethics charges could be brought against them. Kelch, Barrett, and Vampola have been accused of sexually harassing or unethical behavior with women. Circovich resigned amid allegations that she had held private hearings and illegally kicked attorneys out of her courtroom. My complaint brought that out. When it was filed, she quit. She complained that I'd been after her for years, which I had been, but I hadn't filed a formal complaint. I thought maybe her knowing that I was breathing down her neck would make her straighten up and fly right, straighten up and stay right, but it didn't. So I filed a formal complaint and she quit. Each judge had a motive to resign abruptly. It allowed them to salvage either all or a major chunk of their pensions. Currently, state law calculates each judge's pension based on their years of service multiplied by 3.5% or of their $179,000 salary. At most, judges can receive 7% of their salary if they serve 20 years. Because he retired 3 years short of 20 on the bench, Vampola's annual pension will amount to about $106,500 annually. You all are going to pay this scoundrel $106,000. And if I don't get something done, nobody else is even going to try. He's going to show that crime pays if a judge is the perpetrator. Continuing. The pension is funded by a mix of court fees paid by the public, returns from an investment authority, taxpayer direct dollars, and to a far lesser extent, judges' contributions. The trend is one reason that former State Senator Ernie Chambers of Omaha is contemplating a return run for the legislature in 2024. I've had people call me when this story came out saying, Senator, they still call me that. Once you get a bad name, you keep it. Senator, you need to be there. Nobody's going to do anything. And they know they can get away with it. Anyway, among his many roles, Chambers took it upon himself to file complaints against judges accused of corruption, calling himself the garbage man of the judiciary. Judges facing trouble shouldn't get anything, Chambers said. Judges facing trouble shouldn't get anything, I repeat. That pension is their filthy lucre. That's dishonest money. And they will do anything to protect it by all means. If the law was rewritten so that their pensions truly were in jeopardy, it would put an end to this unethical behavior, said Chambers. Under state law, judges facing formal charges aren't allowed to retire and collect their pension. But the same statute builds an escape hatch for a judge in trouble. Before formal charges can be filed against the judge, the Judicial Qualifications Committee must hold an informal, confidential hearing advising the judge of the informal complaint against him or her and the unspoken but understood admonition, get out of Dodge before it's too late. That allows judges, if they know they're in legitimate trouble, to resign and retain their pension. It also allows them to disappear without any public accounting of their unethical behavior. Had not the World Herald dug into this, I wouldn't even know anything about it. I say again, the media did their job. The judiciary should do theirs, but if they don't, then I'm going to do what I feel is my job, not as a member of the legislature, but as a member of society, a man who has a principle that drives him to do what he must do in order to have peace with himself, so that when he lays his head on the pillow at night, he can sleep the sleep of the just. There's no way I could know about this and not try to do something about it. I'm in the process of preparing my letter to the Chief Justice now. The JQC, Judicial Qualifications Commission, as it's known, publicizes allegations against judges and the discipline they receive only if they face formal charges. What judge would let it go to a formal laying of charges when the pension is jeopardized and it's all public? In turn, the alleged misdeeds of the 4 judges mentioned above came to light only through digging by the World Herald. The accusations against Van Pola might be the most involved. Van Pola's ascension or rise to a robe-filled career almost hit a snag before he was appointed. In 2005, then Governor Dave Heinemann, a Republican who once called Fremont home, received the names of Van Pola and another attorney to consider for a judgeship. They would serve Dodge, Burt, Cedar, and Dakota counties, along with Dixon, Thurston, and Washington. A few years before, state officials, including a Nebraska Supreme Court judge and the JQC, had received something else, a letter from a concerned citizen. It said, I think it would reflect poorly on the judiciary if Mr. Van Pola became a judge. This was a Fremont resident writing to the commission. He attached a lengthy police report from 1989. According to that police report, the night of September 27, 1989, Van Pola was 33 and studying to become a lawyer at the University of Nebraska Law School. He and an attorney had gone to Boomer's, a strip joint in Fremont. 2, quote, entertainers, you know, the strippers, ages 18 and 23, told Fremont police that they had been hounded by 2 men all night, with the attorney offering hundreds of dollars for sex acts. The dancers said Van Pola asked if he could hire them for a stag party. Quote, from the letter, the most important thing to them was trying to get us to prostitute. She misspelled prostitute. Prostitute for them. The then 18-year-old wrote in a police report, I told them I'm strictly an entertainer, not a prostitute, unquote. After the dancers finished their shift, they were driving home when they spotted the 2 men following them in an Oldsmobile Toronado. The women drove around hoping to lose them. They couldn't. The women decided to head to the police station while the men rode their back bumper. When we wouldn't stop, they passed us and then cut in front of us as if they were trying to run us off the road, the 23-year-old woman wrote in the police report. Instead, Van Pola crashed into a curb, a front tire snapping off, and the car coming to rest in a yard. Van Pola told Fremont police that he only wanted the entertainers to, quote, dance for my Ducks Unlimited committee, unquote. He said he was driving the attorney's car, had trouble reaching the pedals, and inadvertently gunned it as he was trying to get the women's attention. Fremont police cited him for careless driving. The concerned citizen cited the ordeal to the Nebraska Supreme Court judge as Van Pola sought a judgeship. After Heinemann appointed Van Pola to the bench in 2005, the citizen wrote that, quote, Dozens of Fremont men, unquote, still talk about a different style party involving sex acts, fruits and vegetables, a dancer named White Thunder, and Vampola on stage. Quote, I was stunned at this appointment, the Fremont man wrote to Governor Heinemann. Mr. Governor, you must know that all the old stories of his vile behavior again are making their way around the community. Is this man truly fit to be a judge? Unquote. Heinemann did not return reporters' phone calls last week about that appointment. Vampola had some qualifications. After graduating from the University of Nebraska College of Law in 1997 at age 36, Vampola worked as a Winnebago tribal prosecutor in criminal cases and as an attorney in juvenile cases for 4 years. He served as a tribal judge and did civil and criminal defense work out of Fremont and Arlington before becoming chairman of the Nebraska Parole Board under then Governor Mike Johans. From 2003 to 2005, he and the board made weighty decisions on whether to put prisoners back on the streets. With his record, he's going to judge whether somebody else is fit to walk the streets. Then Governor Johans took a federal appointment to become the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture. After Heinemann took over for Johans, one of the first open judgeships was in Heinemann's old stomping grounds, Dodge County. Vampola presented as a born-again Christian. Oh, you got to be aware when somebody says he or she is a Christian. It's a warning sign, but anyway. Vampola presented as a born-again Christian who by then had more than a decade of experience as a lawyer and as an arbiter of parolees' fate. Of the 7 attorneys who applied, a judicial nominating commission tabbed Vampola, who had served as legal counsel to the Dodge County Republican Party. A rat he was, and dress a rat as you will, a rat remains, a rat still. And he was a former current Dodge County attorney, Paul Vaughn, as finalist. Heinemann appointed Vampola. A county court judge's role is limited in Nebraska courts. Judges at that level preside over misdemeanors involving relatively minor crimes. Most serious would be drunken driving, and over the beginning stages of major cases such as murder. They handle, like a preliminary hearing. Excuse me. They handle civil matters from small claims to litigation over wills and estates. Judges in smaller counties also preside over juvenile cases and parental custody cases. 3 Fremont area attorneys interviewed by the World Herald on this case, all of whom spoke on condition of anonymity because they were talking about a member of the bench, described Vampola as affable in court. That means he's a nice guy. As far as his legal acumen, some people say acumen, they said he was adequate, pointing to bar surveys in which about 78% of attorneys recommended he be retained. Such a score is mediocre. Most judges top 90% favorable reviews on the anonymous surveys. The reviews were far less positive regarding his behavior outside court. 2 sources told the World Herald that Vampola, who is married, and a then county court clerk were overheard one late afternoon last year, 2021, having sex in a visiting judge's office next to a courtroom. An employee also caught them making out. That's what the sources knew and said. That clerk did not return a World Herald series of calls. Vampola and a Nebraska Health and Human Services staffer also were caught in the sex act after hours at the state office near the courthouse several years ago, the source said. Then there was Brooklyn Rydell. Rydell, 37, a waitress at a Fremont restaurant, has had ongoing problems with substance abuse, according to court records, and Rydell's estranged mother, Carla Rydell. 1. I began numbering these. In 2007, Brooklyn Rydell first appeared in front of Vampola as a 16-year-old charged with possession of marijuana and alcohol. Vampola ordered probation, which she successfully completed. 4 years later, she was cited on the same charges plus possessing drug paraphernalia, and Vampola again fined her for the misdemeanor. 2. February 2015, Rydell, then 24, picked up her first felony possession of meth. Her case was pleaded down to a misdemeanor, fairly typical for a first felony, and Vampola gave her probation. 3. In June 2015, she was charged with felony meth possession again. The case was bound over to district court, where a judge ultimately gave her 30 months of probation. The woman was serving that probation at the same time as she was still on probation under Vampola. Number 4, in July of 2016, Rydell, meaning this woman, sent the judge a letter written in bubbly letters. Dear Judge Vampola, I currently am on 2 probations, one in county court and one in district court due to my drug addiction to meth. Currently, I'm 16 months sober, have completed outpatient treatment, and have taken all the classes required for probation. Excuse me, unquote. There was just one problem, Rydell wrote. Her father, Mike Rydell, a former general manager at a Fremont restaurant, had suffered a massive stroke. So she wrote, she moved back home to help her mom care for her dad, and the family was scraping by in turn. She couldn't afford the $425 and fine levied against her. That was the problem. Quote, all I do is work and come home to help my mom take care of my dad, she wrote. I've done everything that's needed to be done and haven't missed or failed a single drug test. I've changed my entire life around and I'm very grateful. Now that I'm clear-minded, I've realized how valuable life is. Please, if there's anything you can do, I would appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. A few weeks later, Vampola ended her probation, writing that, quote, all fees have been paid. It is unclear when Vampola and Rydell struck up a personal relationship, but her contact with the courts didn't stop after he granted her grace. In 2019, Rydell again was picked up for possessing meth. For reasons that aren't apparent, the case was pleaded down to attempted possession, a misdemeanor. In November of that year, Vampola sentenced her to 18 months of probation. In January 2021, Vampola released her from probation about 4 months before it was set to expire, a common practice if defendants are complying with terms. In July 2021, Vampola signed court documents in a misdemeanor case in which Brooklyn alleged that her mother assaulted her. According to Carla, the mother, Vampola signed a warrant based only on Brooklyn, the daughter's version. The mother said she wasn't interviewed. The mother adamantly denied assaulting her daughter, and soon after the case was dismissed and sealed. Sealing dismissed cases also is typical. Then came 2022. Then it became atypical. In January, Vampola bought Rydell a car, a 2012 Chevy Impala, and registered it in both his name and hers, listing his home address in Arlington. 2 months later, he helped her buy a 2003 Toyota Highlander to replace the Impala. Again, he registered the vehicle in both their names, his name and hers, and his address was the one used. That left a Fremont attorney wondering, quote, how long do you have to know someone before you buy her a car? In between the 2 car purchases, Rydell, meaning the woman, was cited after her pit bull got loose in Fremont and bit a couple of people. As that case was pending, Vampola signed an order granting a delay in the case despite his relationship with Rydell. In April, Rydell failed to appear for a hearing in the case. She also took the pit bull to Omaha. It bit someone, and Rydell was fined $100 in Omaha. Back in Fremont, a clerk found Rydell passed out in her and Vampola's Highlander at a gas pump at a BP station on May 6th. The clerk tried to rouse her. She stirred and then passed back out. The clerk called 911. Rydell awoke and took off. A Dodge County Sheriff's deputy found her about 4 blocks away. In her cigarette pack, a baggie containing 1.1 grams of meth. In the truck registered to her in Vampola, a bag of mushrooms, a hypodermic needle, a baggie with meth residue, and a small empty bottle of liquor. She was charged with felony possession of meth. According to sources, Vampola either bailed her out of jail or provided the money to bail her out. Despite his relationship with her, Vampola continued to preside over the dog bite case. In late May, she pleaded to a citation level offense similar to a speeding ticket, where she was allowed to pay a fine. Vampola signed an order accepting her guilty plea. On July 26th, she appeared in court at 9 a.m. on the gas station drug case. Judge Francis Barron grew concerned about whether she was under the influence, a violation of her bail. He ordered her to go get tested at the Dodge County Probation Office not far from the courthouse. If she failed the test, Barron warned he would revoke her bail. By 11:26, Rydell had not shown up. Barron began the process of issuing a bench warrant. Suddenly, he was interrupted by Vampola. Attorneys say Vampola tracked down Barron, the judge, and frantically begged him not to issue the warrant, telling Barron, quote, "She's at the probation office now." Barron ignored Vampola and issued the warrant. That afternoon, a Fremont police officer arrested her at home and took her to jail. Judge Barron upped her bail to 10% of $25,000. That afternoon, someone posted the $2,500 bail for Rydell. It is not clear how the witness came up with that money. The waitress. Her mom has suspicions. Last year, before mother and daughter stopped talking, Carla Rydell said she asked her daughter whether it was true what she heard, that she was spending weekend nights at the judge's Platte River cabin near Schuyler. "How are you driving if you've been drinking?" she asked. "I go to a bedroom and sleep it off," she said. The mother pressed, "Why would a judge who's married and overseeing your cases have a woman half his age stay at his cabin?" Her daughter shrugged, saying, "It was no big deal. I drink my White Claws and he smokes his cigars," Brooklyn said, according to the mother. "He counsels me." The text with the photo arrived on her mother's telephone shortly after her daughter posted it to social media earlier this year. It was a picture of Brooklyn smiling with Vampola close over her left shoulder. Quote, "My adopted father from another father," unquote, she captioned it. Asked the nature of her relationship with Vampola, Rydell told the World Herald reporter, "No comment," and hung up. Vampola did not answer World Herald questions, and I'm just about through, so hang on a couple minutes. Vampola did not answer World Herald questions about any of the allegations. He announced his resignation 9 days after confronting Judge Barron on Rydell's behalf. Vampola appears to have violated several judicial canons. Among them, judges are to recuse themselves from cases involving family, friends, or associates, anything that might jeopardize their ability to be impartial. They are not supposed to have any one-on-one communication about cases outside court. They're not to attempt to intimidate or influence their fellow judges, and they are to avoid any appearance of impropriety. Late last month, the mother said she did not know where to begin in her complaints about the judge's behavior. Hosting a young woman in a cabin, buying her cars that allowed her daughter to drive around drugged out of her mind, bailing her out, allowing her to gain access to his credit cards. Given her daughter's ongoing drug battle, the mother questioned whether Vampola was counseling the young woman. "I call it enabling," she said. "Whether he has good intentions or not, I don't know. It's all very shady. He is enabling a drug addict. I'm going to work on this case. It'll take time for any results to come." But as the canary said, when it became aware that the cage door was ajar, "I'm out of here."
Thank you for watching The Ernie Chambers Show. If you'd like to make suggestions, email us at ewcfacts@gmail.com. That's ewcfacts@gmail.com. This has been an EWC Communication production.